Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's March 12th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and another wild and crazy day as usual. Um, so far, this 2,500 support level has been holding. That's been kind of the line in the sand, and I believe this bounce right here was when Trump announced that he was he was pumping another $1 trillion with a T, trillion, not billion, another $1 trillion into the Fed was going to pump another $1 trillion into the markets. I think most of that goes into bonds and things like that. And you can see we had a nice rally, but it didn't even last. I mean, it lasted. That $1 trillion got us a 180 point bounce that lasted from 1140 to 1215. So uh, maybe 30 minutes tops. So when $1 trillion can only bounce us for 30 minutes, and then we're right back where we started, you really got to wonder. And if you do the measured move today, this was the first leg down, as you can see there. And if we get a measured leg, which there's still, I mean, I'm doing this a little early, it's 2:35, so there's still enough time, especially the way this thing moves lately. I mean, normally I'd tell you there's no way, and I doubt we're probably going to see a measured move, but all of you have seen how accurate this thing can be, and that means we're going to close down here in the 2300s today, or at least we're going to trade down there. I don't know that we might even move down there and reverse by that time. But if we get a measured move on this, we're going to be down in the 2300s soon, even if we get it after hours. It's still really scary considering, especially considering we were at 3400 just a couple of weeks ago. So we were knocking on the door at 3,400, and now we're knocking on the door at 2,400. So 1,000 point drop in that shorter period of time. Maybe we've done that before, but I don't ever remember the market dropping that much in that short of time. So I'm pretty sure these are historic moves. We're living in historic times here, and this virus, half the country thinks it's a hoax, and the other half, then we're blowing it out of proportion, and the other half thinks, the world's coming to an end tomorrow. So most of us are probably like me or somewhere in the middle, trying to decide if it's as serious as they're making it out or not. But we won't really know till it's probably too late. So even if we survive this with very little scathing from the virus, just the fact of what it's going to do to the economy, it's already probably, uh, we're probably already past, we're already past D-Day on the economy now. So there's going to be a huge effect. And so it's just going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But like we've been doing the last couple of days, I'm not going to try to do a regular chart lesson. I want to go over one thing I talked about yesterday, and I've had a lot of people ask me about trend lines, how I draw the trend lines, and so forth to do some more examples of that. And so we'll probably do that. And I'm probably going to try to cut this a little shorter today and get this week wrapped up. And I'm in a university town here. Well, they've canceled. The university told the students not to come back. They're all gone for spring break this week, and so they've told them not to come back. They're probably going to finish all of um, the rest of this semester or this year online, and but they're not even going to do anything for another 10 or 15. They're going to give them 2 weeks to decide how they're going to do it. Most likely go to online classes until this thing blows over. So my guess is there's going to be no students coming back here at all, and I mean that's the lifeblood of this area here. So financially, businesses here are going to take a huge hit. And most of you know I'm not just a trader, I'm an investor. So I invest in lots of things, particularly real estate, because that's a great tax haven to begin with, which you'll need if you're making money trading. You're going to need tax shelter. So that's one of the things I use. And we already, with the economy's been down and the rental market's been kind of soft here, I can't even imagine what this is going to do to the local economy here. So most all the restaurants and the bars and the uh, places like that that you know cater to the students are going to be in serious, serious trouble. And the rental business and so forth, that's a huge business here in this town, the rental market, and that's going to affect me greatly. So um, anyway, we'll see how all that works out. But it's just going to be, like I said, even if the virus doesn't get us economically, I think we're too far gone now that there's not going to be some serious backlash from this stuff. So just be prepared. And like I said, when $1 trillion doesn't do anything more than give you a 30-minute bounce, and then within another hour you've given it all back again, you're right back to scratch. And you can see it. If I back out here, you can see prices are trying to work through that 2,500. We've bounced many a times, um, and the bounces are continuing to get lower and lower here. So if we don't bounce out of here pretty quickly, I would guess we're going lower before this market closes. Um, I'll be shocked if we don't. So, they're probably, who knows, they probably got the plunge protection team buying here, trying to hold that line to get through today. See if we can live for another day to keep the market from dropping any further. We'll see. Um, Interesting times, no doubt. We're probably living through an important time in history. But you can see how far we've fallen today. We were up here at 27, almost 20, 2750, 2770, something like that, and we're 250 points lower right now. And you see we are bouncing off those lows. But a couple of things I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to show you how I do the trend lines, and I want to clarify something from yesterday. Maybe the way I worded it confused some of you, and after I got to thinking about it, yeah, it probably did. But when I told you how we draw our trend lines, let me just back out where you see how far I'm having to back out just to make it where you can even see the bars. This is almost ridiculous. But as I stated yesterday, whenever you draw your trend lines, I always start at the very high, and I usually will go through the way I worded it, the closes, meaning, well, really the way I should have worded that is through the bodies, because in this case, off the highs, it probably would be the closes, but if you're drawing it off the lows, it's probably going to be the opens. So the way I should have worded that to keep from confusing, most of you probably understood it, but I got another trader or two that asked me about it and they were confused. But it's the bodies really. So you see, if you draw that off the bodies, it fits really good on that side, and that's not necessarily the closes right there. That's the bodies. You drag it up and you see how well that fits on that side. And then we head down again. So depending on what side you're on, it can be the closes or the open. So just call it the bodies. Hope that's clear to everybody. Because if you drew it through the closes, then technically I'd be drawing this way down here somewhere, and you can see that's not right. But here's another thing I want to show you. On this particular trend line, if you draw that through off the first, start at the high and go through the first swing, that fits pretty good, but my guess is that's probably a shorter term trend right there. So let's do this. Let's make a smaller. That fits really well there. And then you get a break and a new low and then a correction, and then we start something else here. So, but this is just a very, and you can see that does fit pretty well on both sides there. But my guess is that's probably a short term, and there's probably going to be a longer term one here. And if you bring that over, you can see, yeah, we come back and play here till we finally get a break and a correction. And then we're off to the downside again. And let's just see how this, And the way you verify it is just see how it fits on the other side. And you can see that's fitting very nicely there. Looks like we actually got some overshoot down here before we got the close outside and started going sideways. So but you can see that. And then somebody else asked me, you know, how you maybe adjust them as the day goes. It's very rarely that I have to adjust my trend line. Generally what you'll find is, you know, there's something shorter term here and then there's a longer term one out here. And but let's just say one way you might have to adjust them occasionally is like if I come right across here, across those closes and draw this trend line, that looks about right there. But notice how we didn't get back there, then we overshot it here. So I probably would have had to adjust that one a little bit. And then you bring it down, you can see we're bouncing off the other side there until you get the break and the new low. So you might have to adjust it slightly, especially if you're using a swing or a bunch of bars here that start off. A lot of times you'll find them. Let me find a good example of where that, if I can find one. Here's one right here where you're kind of using these first few bars here. See how well that fits through up through there, and if you copy it and drag it over, notice how it gapped over it right there. You'll see those gaps a lot. When you see those gaps in your trend and you got a trend line or a trend channel in there, that's a good indication that you're at it in the right place. Just like right here, look at that trend line coming down, and notice how it gapped over. It ended up backing up, but it closed on its high and opened on its low and headed higher. It ended up backing up and filling that little gap with one tick there. But you can see it still gapped over it momentarily. Did the same thing right there. It gaps over it again. Again, it backs up a tick, but it gaps over it. And I can't explain why prices do that. I don't know. Don't really care. I just know that they do it a lot. And when you see that, you know you probably got your trend line in the right place. Because for whatever reason, they tend to gap over. And here's another one that did the same thing right there. It gapped over that one right there. And you'll see that over and over and over. Right there at the trend lines, or you'll see it at the EMA occasionally as well. It's just interesting how it does it. A lot of times it doesn't even fill the little gap by ticking back or and making sure there's some overlap. When I say a gap, I'm just basically talking about overlap there, like right there. See, if they hadn't have ticked back, there'd be no overlap between them bars. If you look, 99% of your bars will have some overlap. All of these bars, the next bar overlaps a little bit, and even this one ended up backing up, but it gapped over it to begin with. Same thing here, it gapped over it to begin with, and then it backed up a little bit. But a lot of times you won't even see it back up. It just gaps over it and takes off. Here's another one where it gapped. It did back up. It looks like there's a little tick there. Heck, I can't even tell. It's so small. Yeah, there's a tick or two there. And you'll see it on the support, the flat support levels sometimes too. It'll gap over. Like right there. Well, actually, it didn't gap there because this one stems there. But where it closed there and where it opened, it gapped. It didn't. It never backed up either, although it had a little overlap on the stem there. I don't want to make it too confusing and confuse you, but anyway, yeah, when you go to draw your trend line, there's a lot of little short-term ones in here, and generally like these, you want to get it where it fits the best. So if you draw it right there, that's really starting to fit well, but it gets outside. So what a lot of times I'll do is I'll come down here off the low, and I'll get it to fitting best off the low, and you can see that. See how nicely that fits. And when I say that, I'm talking about how prices react off that line. You can see them touching and reacting. Now copy that line and move it up. And you can see what it is. There's a little bit of a gap. There's like a little spike in channel right there, not a gap, I'm sorry. If you put it up here, where you normally start, you don't really get anything. And maybe what it is that is the trend line, and there's a midline right here, and that's probably what's going on right there. But it could just be a little spike in channel, and then you get a break and a new low, and then you're going the other way. So just remember that if you're having a hard time finding your trend line, draw it off the lows like right there, and then drag it up, and then see how it fits. So most of the time you can get it off. And the same thing if prices are going up here, and for whatever reason, let's say you're having a hard time finding it down here, you're drawing it like that, and then you drag it over and it just doesn't really fit well. Well, go ahead and come over here and draw it off this side first. Copy it, drag it over, and you can see now it fits nicely on both sides. So I hope that's helpful. Let me look at there was a couple of emails. Let me make sure I've talked about everything I want to talk to. I'm going to pause it just a minute. Okay, I think I covered most of what people were asking about. But again, just to clarify on the part about adjusting your trend lines, you don't have to adjust them very often. Honestly, I can look at my chart and see these lines before I ever even draw them in most cases. I don't really even have to draw them and play with them a minute. You know, when you're new and you're learning, you might have to draw them and play around with them to get them to fit. I can glance at this chart and almost see the lines without even drawing them anymore. But that's 20 years of experience, and most people can't do that. You know, this is a skill. I want to talk about that again. This is a skill, and like any skill, you have to hone it. And there's a couple examples I like to use. One of them is this a price chart. Price action speaks a language. This chart's speaking a language, and it's just like any other non-native language. Just assume you're an English speaker and you've never spoken Chinese before. Imagine how hard it is to learn to speak Chinese. Well, learning to read this chart and understand what prices are doing are the same thing. This is a foreign language speaking to you here. So we are getting a little bounce off those lows we never could get through. Day's not over yet. A few minutes left in the day. Regardless, we're going to probably close down pretty strongly. But this is like a language, and so how do you learn a new language? You have to practice it every day. You have to immerse yourself in it. Really, to really become fluent, you almost have to go live there and immerse yourself in it. And trading's the same way. You have to do this every day and study your charts, and you just have to immerse yourself into it, and the amount of time and effort and practice and all is just like trying to speak another language. You know, you can't read a language book. You can't go buy a book on Portuguese and read it and expect to speak Portuguese the next day. Well, it's the same thing here. You can't go buy a trading manual or watch a few videos and expect that you're going to be able to understand what's going on the next day. It's impossible. And I mean, I don't know anybody could go buy a book, a Chinese book, and read it and be able to speak Chinese fluently the next day. They got to practice it every day. They got to go live in that. Usually the best way is to go live in that environment, have to speak it every day. And then you start to pick it up and you start to learn it. But it takes you time to become fluent. Yeah, you might even be able to speak broken Chinese in a month or two, but you're not. But to be fluent, you have to go there and live it and hear people talk and learn it like that. And another good explanation is similar to is it's like trying to learn to play a musical instrument for those of you that are musicians. Very few people can pick up a guitar and play like Jimi Hendrix. How long do you think he had to learn? It took him to learn and practice and play to become the player that he was. And some of you younger people might, most of you probably know who Jimi Hendrix is, but I may be aging myself there. But I was a kid when he was famous, but that man could play a guitar. I mean, I don't even know who else to think of that would be something similar to that. But just think about any kind of world-class musician, somebody that plays, in the opera or something that plays some that's world class, and they didn't get that way overnight. That's a skill, and they had to practice and learn that skill. And trading is just like that. So anybody that thinks they're going to read a couple of books or a manual and trade for a month or two and they're going to be good at this, you're mistaken. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. No matter how high your IQ is, no matter how smart you are, no matter how much education you have, you can't do this because it's impossible to do it that quickly. It's a skill, and it's not even like an athletic skill that you're born with. A lot of athletes are born with some of their skills. But just another example is assume you got a chance to play professional baseball tomorrow, and you could go step into the batter's box and play against some of the best professional baseball pitchers out there. How many of you think you could get a base hit right away? How many of you think you could even hit the ball the first after 20 pitches? Most of us probably wouldn't even hit the ball after 20 pitches. Now, some of us, yeah, a few of us might get lucky and accidentally stick the bat out there and get a one base hit, but you're not gonna get many because even the pros don't get but 2 or 3 base hits out of every 10. And that's guys that do it every day for a living. So somebody like us would be lucky if we can get one hit. We'd be lucky if we can even hit a foul ball or tip one because we're not skilled enough. Even if you're born with the greatest hand-eye coordination and you played little league baseball and you were all-star or high school, it's very doubtful you could just walk out there and pick up a bat tomorrow and hit a professional pitcher because they're too good. They're too skilled. And so this is similar to that. That's another, something similar that I like to relate it to. And so I hope what I'm telling you, you understand that this is, this is a skill. And in order to be skilled at it and good at it, you got to practice and play, or rather not play, but trade. And you're just sitting here every day watching this chart print and then studying it and looking where the reversals happen, where do all the big moves happen. Generally, that's what you want to do at the end of the day. First, you want to study your trades and learn your tendencies and correct them. And then when you're done, go study the trade and look where all the big moves happen. They happen at the key entry points for the most part. This trend line coming down is where every big move started from on the way down, even until we got the break. And then even then, it was after the break of this key entry point. And then going up, where did all these moves on the way up originate at? At the key entry point, which is the trend line on the way up. Every time prices came back, that's where the big move originated. So learn where these things happen, where you see reversals like right here and right here. Study what they look like. Look how this shot right through the EMA and got very little support right there, then pulled back and turned lower. And same thing here, it came back with 2 legs. That's a perfect second entry short right there in a downtrend. And that's a perfect signal bar that opened on its low, traded up, and came all the way back down and closed on its low. I need to make sure I'm telling you right. Maybe that's a doji. I'm sorry. That's not a very good signal bar. I thought it closed down here, but that's so hard to see this stuff without backing out 100 miles. But yeah, that's not a very good signal bar. That's a very neutral bar right there, but that's still a second entry short and a big downtrend. I'd probably tell you to wait on a lower high there. But that's a good example of a good second entry short other than the signal bar there. Notice the new low. You're working up. When it broke lower right there is your first entry. Then it starts going higher again. So as soon as it breaks lower, it's a second entry. And that was right there. And then notice this big trend, this nice little trend right here. And you can see that little short-term trend line working down. Let's copy that and see how it fits on the other side. Actually, I grabbed the wrong one. Move this one back. And you can see how nicely that fits on this side as well. And that's a nice little trend channel right there. And then you get another little second entry short right there. Not a very good signal bar, and that's why I like to filter them. That's probably still enough move to scalp out, but on a normal day you'd have got burned right there. But that's why I like to use a good signal bar to filter my trades. Oops. Here's a nice little second entry right at this key. Actually, I think that's my arrow showing the measured move. But notice that low. You're working up, first entry right there, and you climb again, and look at that perfect bearish bar. When it broke lower there, that's a second entry short, and look at it go. And notice too, that confirmed this flatter trend line running down through there. Came back to it again right here as well. And I mean, if you catch that one trade right there, I mean 25.80 all the way down to 25.20. That's a 60-point move right there. That's hard to believe. Really hard to believe. But you can catch that one move, catch one runner, and if you just get a small piece of this, you've had a great day. I mean, in 5 minutes you can make as much money on a runner these days as you might make trading all week. Uh-oh, look, we finally broke lower. Wow, this thing is just, and I think we just made all-time new lows there again. 20, or not all-time, but on this sell-off we just made. And look where it bounced, right off that trend channel that I drug down there and had it sitting at that low. We bounced off of it right there. Let me get back to it. You can see we bounced off it to the tick. And I had that in there from early this morning, or well, I say early this morning, from right before lunchtime. And I didn't have to adjust that. I drew it right off, just like I tell you. You start at the high, you draw it off through the, that I use the bodies, not closes, as I usually describe that. It is the close, but technically I should call it the bodies. And notice how that, notice what every time we came back to that key entry point, big nice moves. Even once we got the break, look at that move. And that's what you got to do, is just sit and be patient and wait for it to, you got to be able to find these points first. And if you just try to do them like I've taught you, with time, time and experience, you will learn them. So, but look at all these moves. And again, these don't look like big moves. Look at this one right here. This started at, really curious. I mean, you would have been in this around 25.65 or so, and in just a few minutes, it had dropped 25 points or so. I mean, literally, that was it. I mean, right around 1 o'clock, and by 1:02, you'd made 25 points. And that's just assuming you get a piece of it, really. But that's incredible, and it's just incredible trading. And look at this move. Of course, this is after 2 o'clock, but we've seen a lot more. And look at that move, where we were just looking at it trading up here just a second ago at 3:01, and now it's 3:03, and we've dropped 24.81 to, that's 30 points in just 2 minutes. I just, I don't ever remember trading like this. It's been a long, long time. So, and there's maybe 10 minutes left in today's trading. So it'll be interesting to see. We may close on a low today. If not, we're not. This thing, of course, this thing can move 40 points straight up in a blink. So we may not close on the low, but it wouldn't surprise me if we close on a new low here. We finally did get through that 2,500 though. And that was after the Feds pumped $1 trillion. 1 trillion. Think about that. Not 1 billion, 1 trillion. I don't know. I forget how many billions are in a trillion, but there's a bunch of billions. Is it a million? Is it 1,000 billions, or is it 100,000 billion? I'm not even sure. I don't even, that's that way out of my I'm just going to tell you straight up, I'm not that smart, so I don't know how many billions are in a trillion. Uh, I'll have to Google it to find out. So you got me curious. Okay, $1 trillion is 1,000 billions, or a million millions, however you want to look at it. That's a lot of money. I mean, if they just gave everybody in the country, I mean, they could make a million people millionaires with that kind of money. Wow. I think they'd be better. I think that some of this money that the feds give out would be better off just to give it to the people rather than giving it. You know, basically, we're giving it to all these rich people is what they're doing. So anyway, I don't want to get into politics and all that stuff. So, but anyway, it's 30 minutes worth. I'm going to wrap it up for today, and no chart lesson tomorrow. And assuming the markets are open Monday and they don't have us all on lockdown, I will be back Monday, and we'll just kind of play it by next week. I may end up taking off if this continues and this thing just keeps dropping. I may just take a week off or a few days off or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, and I don't know how it's gonna be around here. Most of the students are gone, so it's really quiet around here right now anyway. So um, they've only had one case of coronavirus confirmed in our state, and that was late last night, the first one. So, um, I don't know how worried we're going to be about being out in the public much longer. So, we'll just have to see. So, we'll play it by ear. Be safe out there. As they tell us, stay away from large crowds and wash your hands a lot. Hopefully, that, I don't know how well that's going to work, but that's what they're telling us. But be safe and be careful. Even trading, be careful. You can get hurt in this market. It's as easy as you can make big money, you can get hurt because if the market stops trading, if they halt the market after, if we hit a circuit breaker point, you could get hurt on that. So be careful with that. And have a great day tomorrow. And I'll be in touch Monday regardless. I'm sure I'll do something Monday at the very minimum, and we'll just kind of play it by ear. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.